Understand this first. No one thinks about your life more than you do. There is a silence before every turning point, a stillness before something breaks open. Ask yourself, how long have you been sitting there, waiting in that quiet, hoping someone would notice the weight you carry? How many mornings have you woken with pressure in your chest? No direction, no reassurance, no hand reaching out. Just you and the day ahead. The truth is severe. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is awake at night thinking about your unrealized potential, your pain, your discipline, or the promises you keep postponing. And this truth should burn, because only when the illusion of rescue dies does your real life begin. The Stoics were clear. Dependence on external validation is self-inflicted weakness. You do not suffer because others abandoned you. You suffer because you expected them not to. You believed effort deserved recognition. You believed silence would invite concern. But silence is not cruelty. It is clarity. Silence reveals where strength must be built. People carry a quiet expectation that someone will eventually notice, that persistence will be rewarded with encouragement, that consistency will be met with praise. But time moves, silence remains, no recognition, no validation, disappointment grows, not because support is absent, but because expectation was present. You did not fail. You assumed someone would care as much as you do. The mind fills absence with stories. It paints silence as rejection, detachment as disrespect. But the truth is simpler. People are not ignoring you. They are consumed by their own survival, their own pain, their own distractions. They are not watching. And that realization, while heavy, is freeing, because when you stop waiting to be seen, you begin to see yourself. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. The world is not against you. It is simply preoccupied. That is not tragedy. That is opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was not comfort. It was instruction. Your suffering lives in the belief that something outside you must change before you move. But when you release others from responsibility for noticing your growth, something settles. No more guessing, no more hoping, only forward motion. This clarity is not cold. It is the end of waiting. It is the beginning of authorship. You stop writing the story where someone arrives to save you. You stop rehearsing the moment they finally understand. You start building, not because anyone is watching, but because the work still matters. You act not for recognition, but for alignment. You show up because showing up is who you are becoming. Yes, it may still hurt at times, because humans are wired to want connection, but desire does not need to become dependence. You can want to be seen without being weakened by invisibility. This is refinement, not hardening. You shed the version of yourself that waited for rescue. You let go of the belief that your journey requires witnesses. Some of the most powerful victories happen unseen, unrecorded, unapplauded, and that is where they gain weight. Seneca warned, "The one who anticipates hardship removes its power, and the one who releases the fantasy of recognition removes the sting of its absence." You already know what must be done. You already know the path. When the world does not echo your value, you stop shouting, you listen inward, you move without permission. That is where real strength takes root, not in loud success, but in silent alignment. Strength that does not demand attention. It simply moves, builds, endures. Maybe one day the world notices, maybe it never does. By then it will not matter, because duty, clarity, and integrity outlast applause. This is what it means to focus on yourself, not with arrogance, but with quiet responsibility, to carry your weight without resentment, to move without approval, to live from the inside out. Think how much life is spent suspended, not failing, not advancing, just waiting, waiting for understanding, waiting for a sign, waiting for permission. Waiting feels strategic, feels patient, feels wise. But waiting is often fear disguised as caution. Stillness becomes stagnation. Preparation becomes avoidance. Waiting does not protect you. Most people will not see your vision. because it was not given to them, it was given to you. And clarity is built through moti, on, not validation. Confidence is forged by acting without certainty, by moving before comfort arrives. The right moment is the moment you stop asking for one. That is where focus begins, not in perfect conditions, but in the decision to stop waiting. When Carl Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart," he was not speaking in poetry, he was naming the moment power returns. As long as your attention is scattered outward, on opinions, approval, reactions, you are unanchored. You are borrowing clarity instead of forging it. Those who look outward dream, those who look inward awaken. The turning point is internal. When you stop reaching for confirmation and turn inward, something stabilizes, noise fades, doubt quiets, energy aligns. Progress begins there, quiet, uneventful, consistent. You stop asking before acting, you stop announcing before building, you stop checking the world for permission. Life becomes simpler, not easier, clearer. You are no longer entangled in imagined reactions. You are no longer shaping your life to be validated. You are building it to be lived. You always knew what needed to be done. Clarity was never missing. Permission was. You waited for a signal, a green light, a moment handed to you. It never came, not because others did not care, but because they were waiting too. Everyone waits. Few move. Those who rise are not invited. They walk. The moment you step forward without approval, something locks into place. You are no longer moving because it feels. You move because it is time. Even when it is messy, even when it is uncertain, that movement creates momentum. And momentum is sacred. Once it starts, it feeds itself, not with praise, with proof. You prove to yourself that you are capable, not because you were told, but because you acted. The Stoics taught this clearly. Nothing great is formed suddenly. Character is built in unseen decisions, in quiet repetitions, when no one is watching, no applause, no audience. Those who go far do not wait to feel ready. They move anyway. Waiting feels harmless, thoughtful, safe. But waiting extracts a cost. It steals time. It feeds doubt. It reinforces the lie that you must be allowed to begin. Over time, waiting becomes comfort, a place to plan without risk, to imagine without consequence. Nothing changes there. The only thing between you and your next form is the belief that you are not ready. That belief does not protect you, it immobilizes you. Strength does not arrive before action. It emerges from it. Action teaches. Action clarifies. Action exposes weakness and replaces it with structure. Seneca warned, "While we wait for life, life passes, not to frighten you, to wake you. The life you seek will not arrive. It must be built, moment by moment, in uncertainty, in fear, in silence, especially in silence. That is where you learn to trust your own voice. When no one is watching, something uncomfortable appears. There is no one to impress. No scoreboard, no echo. Motivation based on observation disappear. Ours, what remains is bare. You and the work. Silence tests intention. You ask yourself, was this for progress or for praise? When eyes leave, performance dies. What remains is discipline, not as image, as structure. Character is not forged in grand gestures, but in quiet follow-through. There is discomfort when validation disappears. You are used to feedback, reactions, small rewards. When they vanish, you feel exposed. That discomfort is not a warning, it is confirmation. You have entered the real training ground. Without witnesses, your own voice becomes loud. At first it hesitates, it negotiates, it seeks escape, stay. A stronger voice emerges, the voice of resolve. This is internal discipline, unglamorous, uncelebrated, effective. You keep promises made in private because your word matters to you. That alone reshapes identity. Sacrifice becomes alignment, effort becomes order. You stop chasing attention, you choose wholeness. Eventually the absence of recognition becomes peace. Solitude becomes space, not exile. You are free to build without interference. You are no longer performing, you are constructing. Each day confirms who you have chosen to be. You do not need to be seen. You do not need to be affirmed. That lack of need becomes strength. Momentum forms, quiet, steady, self-fueled. It does not depend on mood. It does not collapse in silence. It endures, because it is built on evidence. You show up. You follow through. That evidence becomes trust in yourself. You enter rooms without proving. You speak without hunger. People feel it. Calm earned in private. Dignity built in silence. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. Seneca wrote, "Nothing proves a well-ordered mind more than the ability to be alone with oneself. That is not peace alone. That is power, to sit with your effort and know it is enough. Just presence, just steadiness." That is the gift of discipline. It teaches you how to live in alignment, without performance, without applause, without needing to be seen to feel alive. At first it feels heavy, like no one cares, like your effort is invisible, like your work has no weight. But it does, because it is reshaping you. Every choice, every repetition, every silent decision, it is becoming you, and in time that becomes more valuable than any applause ever could. Because you will not look disciplined. You will be disciplined, not when the lights are on, not when people are watching, but always, especially in the dark. There comes a moment when you realize motivation has been lying to you. It promised that one intense moment, one quote, one surge of emotion would carry you forward. Maybe it worked for a day, maybe two, but the truth arrives when the feeling fades, when the music stops, when the mood disappears. Then the real question appears: who are you when the feeling is gone? That is where the work begins. Motivation is temporary, identity remains. The moment you stop needing to feel inspired to act, you step into something permanent. Motivation needs a reason. Identity does not. It moves because that is who it is. It wakes early, not from excitement, but from agreement. A quiet promise kept. It shows up in discomfort. It repeats what is boring. It does not collapse when unnoticed. Identity is not a feeling. It is a decision repeated until it becomes instinct. That is why it endures. Feelings shift. Principles anchor. When your effort continues without recognition, without feedback, without witnesses, something solid forms. It no longer breaks when you are tired or discouraged or unfocused. It carries you. Your life begins to move in rhythm, not bursts, not surges, a steady force. Most never learn this difference. They wait for energy before they act, and when it does not arrive, they believe something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Their foundation cannot carry weight. Progress built on motivation swings with mood. Progress built on identity holds. People confuse who they are with how they feel. Feelings pass. They do not define unless obeyed. The one who acts only when they feel ready is ruled by chemistry. The one who acts from principle, who decides who they are in advance, and lives by that standard, is free, not because struggle disappears, but because struggle has structure. Consistency is not perfection, it is return. Even when thrown off, you know how to correct. That self-trust is earned, one repetition at a time. Over time something shifts. You stop asking, "Do I feel like this today?" You act. Momentum forms quietly. No announcement, no signal. One day you notice, hat once required effort, is now non-negotiable, not for reward, not for praise, but because it matches who you are. That is power. Effort becomes normal, not dramatic, not heroic. Routine replaces debate. You no longer negotiate with yourself. The decision was already made. Seneca taught, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Preparation requires action without emotional permission. That training is slow, invisible, uncelebrated, but it is what sustains progress. When others burn out, motivation will die. Many times, identity does not. The one who continues without recognition becomes formidable. They do not wait for momentum, they create it in repetitions unseen. That is how you know it is real. When noise fades, when crowds vanish, when feeling disappears, you remain doing the work, not because it is easy, not because it is exciting, but because it is you. That trust becomes your edge. While others chase inspiration, you move in rhythm. Your progress does not need to be loud, it needs to be real. Identity does not announce, it appears again and again and again. Most people explain more than they execute. They speak plans, share intentions, rehearse futures. It feels like motion, but it is noise. Noise leaks energy. Talk without action tricks the mind into feeling complete. Dreams stall between idea and execution, not from lack of ability, but from waiting for approval. Approval delays momentum. The moment you need permission, you surrender direction. Clarity comes from act. There is power in keeping plans quiet, in letting results speak, because discipline does not argue, it builds, and what is built in silence endures to yourself, not from secrecy, from discipline. When intention is held in silence, it gathers strength, it sharpens, nothing leaks. Silence becomes your edge. It protects your energy from scattering, from conversations that do not matter, from opinions that dilute direction. It teaches you how to move unseen, and the ability to move quietly, consistently, without validation, is rare. Explanation often comes from insecurity, a shield against imagined judgment. People announce plans so expectations form. That pressure feels like accountability, but it is unstable. When external pressure fades, so does urgency. Internal clarity does not fade. Clarity does not need to speak. It moves. Epictetus said, "Do not explain your philosophy, embody why it." That is not advice. It is a standard. Live so aligned that behavior becomes the message. No disclaimers, no announcements, only repetition. When you stop narrating, your mind sharpens, time returns, you let the work speak. This world rewards oversharing, constant updates, public journeys. Sometimes it connects, often it distracts. Attention becomes currency. Momentum is traded for reaction. Ambition loses depth when too many enter the room too early. Restraint creates space. Space allows growth. Results are louder than promises. They always have been. The quieter the path, the stronger the arrival. Because energy was not wasted convincing. It was conserved, directed, compounded. That undiluted energy becomes focus. Focus that does not shake, does not bend, does not explain. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." In the same way, it is not lack of planning, but need for agreement, that weakens momentum. The hunger to be understood, to be reassured, to be supported, is human. But when it replaces movement, ambition decays, clarity fades. Silent execution changes this. Movement becomes lighter. The mind clears. No checking reactions, no adjusting for opinion, only work. That work compounds, quietly, deeply, like roots beneath the surface. By the time others notice, you are already consistent, and consistency is force. Silence does not demand, does not beg, it builds. When explanation stops, experience deepens. There is no audience in the mind, only the next step. Each step becomes intentional, aligned, real, less explanation, more production, less narration, more awareness, less permission, faster growth. Transformation does not announce itself. It stabilizes, built on commitment, not approval. Let silence sharpen you. Let results speak in rooms you never entered. You do not need volume to have power. You need clarity, and clarity moves without explanation. Focus begins as choice, then becomes way of life. Energy stops scattering across notifications, arguments, headlines demanding reaction, not from arrogance, from understanding cost. Attention is Lee. Every scroll takes presence. Every impulse steals momentum. Loss is subtle at first, but it accumulates. When everything feels urgent and nothing feels meaningful, focus has been stolen. That changes when stimulation is replaced with substance. You filter the world through value. Most noise disappears. The mind breathes. You become selective. You let people misunderstand you. You let the world rush. You move deliberately, not detachment, discipline. Not every fire needs water. Not every battle deserves engagement. Peace arrives not from avoidance, from discernment. No guilt for space, no apology for boundaries. Availability ends, presence begins. Real focus does not announce, it exists, built in unseen choices, closed tabs, silent phones, refused distractions. That strength is quiet, but it stands. When pressure rises, when chaos hits, it knows where it is anchored. That is focus, that is discipline. And that is how everything narrows, not to limit, to refine. The temptation is always there, to be everything for everyone. Discipline reminds you to be something solid for yourself. Tests will come, people will pull at you, the world will demand reaction. You learn to give it less, not from coldness, from focus. You see how far you moved. When you stopped managing everything and started managing yourself, that inner order, that clarity. This is where power begins. Epictetus taught, we cannot choose circumstances, only our response. When response is trained by focus, it becomes steady, mesu. Red, calm, urgency dissolves, you stop rushing, you move with purpose, you stop panicking, you respond, you stop reacting to everything, because you understand, not everything is worthy of you. This is not rigidity, it is anchoring. You stay with what matters, even while distractions circle. You learn to say not now, without guilt. You build an internal silence. The world cannot disturb. That silence is your shield, your clarity, your edge. Aristotle said, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. Where attention flows, life follows. Scattered attention, scattered life. Sharpened attention, sharpened existence. This is not theory, it is daily practice. Choosing again and again, presence over pull, essence over noise. Eventually you stop asking, is this interesting? You ask, is this essential? Stimulation loses its grip, alignment takes its place. Life simplifies, not easier, meaningful. Because you are no longer consumed, you are constructing. In this world, visibility is mistaken for value. Reactions are confused with worth. Pressure forms. To prove yourself publicly, without noticing, you begin chasing impressions, not improvement. Recognition feels like progress. Silence feels like failure. But real growth is quiet. It does not ask for witnesses, only consistency. When this truth settles, freedom follows. You learn the difference between being known and being whole. Being known is surface, being whole is internal. The moment you stop measuring effort by reaction, you reclaim power, not indifference. Your worth stops rising and falling with applause. That inner steadiness is rare. It allows you to keep building. When no one is watching, when numbers are low, when understanding is absent, you do not stop caring. You stop depending. Self-respect returns to your hands. You live by your standards. You measure depth, not noise. Depth cannot be displayed. It is revealed in hardship, in disappointment, in silence. You own your emotions. Instead of outsourcing them, the mind quiets. Feedback becomes optional, not oxygen. When feedback becomes fuel, direction is lost. Identity bends, chasing reaction. That path makes you fragile, but anchoring yourself internally builds strength. You stop chasing pace. You trust rhythm. Your rhythm, calm, unrushed, uncompeting. This is emotional ownership. To feel without obedience, to hear without collapsing, to receive praise without dependence. Marcus Aurelius warned, the one who craves more is the one who lacks. Craving attention, craving reaction, keeps you poor in peace. Fulfillment without filling creates wealth unseen. It shows in your work, in your presence, in how you carry silence, not to block others, but to hold space. You notice how much energy was lost to comparison, to scrolling, to wondering. You reclaim it. Creation replaces reaction. You stop leaking. Efficiency enters your emotional life. Each choice of ownership builds strength. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. That is the cost. Misunderstanding. You are not here to convince. You are here to become. The rewards appear slowly. Boundaries unseen, confidence unannounced, strength unflaunted. There is power in being misunderstood and staying the course. There is wisdom in restraint. Silence is not weakness. It is the space between impulse and response. That space is freedom from moods, from trends, from expectation. You trust the work, not reaction. You trust yourself, not outcome. Bravery is not always loud. Sometimes it is continuing unseen. Sometimes it is refusing to explain. Sometimes it is walking away. Visibility without substance is empty. Substance without visibility is real. So you continue, not watched, but decided. Your peace is not negotiable. Each quiet repetition separates you from noise. You stop performing. You become presence. Presence endures. Most obstacles are not external. They are emotional weight wrapped around the task. Doubt, hesitation, the need for permission, these are the true blocks. When you see this, you stop treating resistance as failure. Discomfort is not warning, it is transition. The mind resists the unknown, not the work. When you stop waiting for certainty, progress accelerates. You act through noise, Carl Jung said. Until the unconscious is made conscious, it will direct your life. Fear and hesitation lose power when moved through. You do not need to fix emotion, to act. You stop using feeling as permission. Consistency forms. Not from confidence, from commitment. That commitment is Q. It survives bad days, low moods, slow seasons, because it was chosen once and honored daily. The drama fades, the rhythm remains, step by step. No rush, no panic, only repetition, and repetition becomes identity. That rhythm becomes momentum, and momentum becomes identity. This is how something lasting is built, not through bursts of intensity, but through waves of repetition, especially when it is boring, because boredom is where most abandon themselves. They mistake silence for failure. They mistake calm for stagnation. But silence is not absence, it is depth, and depth is where strength forms. When you continue after excitement fades, you separate yourself from the many. You prove this is not for stimulation, not for approval, not for dopamine. You do it because it is right. That is when progress compounds, not loudly, not dramatically, but inevitably. The Stoics understood this. The task does not become difficult until the mind resists it. The struggle is emotional first, not practical. Remove the need for reassurance, and the task shrinks. It becomes work, nothing more. Not a judgment of worth, not a verdict on potential, just a duty, whether it feels perfect or not, whether it is seen or ignored, whether motivation arrives or stays absent. This shift changes everything. Control returns, movement begins. Progress does not need speed to be real. It does not need noise to be powerful. The strongest progress hides. It looks like returning again, doing the same thing again. G1, adjustment, not escaping into reinvention, saying no to one more distraction, saying yes to one more repetition, choosing consistency over novelty, process over emotion. Each choice weakens resistance, not because resistance vanishes, but because you stop negotiating with it, you stop giving it a voice. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, it is habit. Habit is quiet, unglamorous, invisible, but it works. Every repetition adds weight, and weight becomes gravity. Eventually effort begins to pull outcomes toward you. Confidence, clarity, results, not forced, not chased, earned through consistency. This is emotional discipline, the Stoic art of order, turning chaos into structure, potential into progress, working inside noise without being swallowed by it. You learn you do not need fear to leave. You move with it present. You do not need confidence to act with value. You do not need affirmation to create meaning. When setbacks lose emotional charge, they lose control. They become part of the path, not a pause. And as you treat them that way, they shrink, trust grows, not because doubt disappears, but because action continues. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you must do. No explanation, no delay, no permission. Do it, then do it again." Consistency is not mood, it is alignment. Alignment with values, with direction, with identity. As alignment strengthens, hesitation weakens. Life is built through repetition, not breakthroughs. Reinforcement. Small actions, repeated. That is where strength forms. Strength does not announce itself. It reveals itself in restraint, in recovery, in endurance, in how you respond to difficulty, in how you rebuild after neglect. That strength compounds, slowly, silently, relentlessly. This is real growth, not under lights, but in shadows, where no one watches, where no one praises, where you continue because you decided. Eventually you stop waiting for signals. You stop looking outward. You understand. No one grants permission for your life. That realization is quiet, but irreversible. You take the helm. Focus on self is not coldness, it is responsibility. Direction is your duty. No one carries it for you. Once this truth settles, excuses dissolve, not because you are perfect, but because blame loses purpose. Energy once spent explaining is reclaimed. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. The Stoics warned against this illusion. Maturity is action, despite conditions. You become the one who corrects course, not because it is easy, but because it must be done. This is not pressure, it is power. Anyone can act when motivated, when watched, when rewarded. Strength is built when none of that exists, when the spark is gone and only standard remains. You do not rely on feeling, you rely on principle, and principle endures. That is Stoicism, not intensity, but permanence, not noise, but order, not emotion, but mastery. You rise and do the work because you said you would. You reflect, you adjust, not to impress, not to perform, but to remain loyal to the person you are becoming. There is no celebration, no announcement, only a quiet force forming within you, a strength that does not seek validation. Then comes the part few prepare for, the fading of enthusiasm. Every journey begins with fire, excitement, momentum. You feel unstoppable, but fire always settles. Motivation fades, routine arrives, and suddenly the work feels heavy. This is where most drift. They mistake boredom for misalignment. They assume the absence of excitement means they chose wrong. But this is only the next stage. Growth is not always thrilling. It is repetitive, deliberate, demanding. Repetition with intention is what reshapes you. Consistency is not born from inspiration. It is learned through movement without it. This is maturity, choosing growth when comfort would be easier. Not once, but repeatedly. Setbacks come. You meet them without panic, with presence. You have felt this before. You know the terrain, and now you know how to respond. That is strength, not perfection, not ideal conditions. Clarity is what you need, and clarity comes from within, from values, from priorities, from chosen direction. Wisdom is intentional. It is earned through attention, by noticing hesitation, reaction, avoidance, then confronting them quietly, piece by piece. You do not need to be flawless to be in control, only honest enough to see drift, and disciplined enough to correct it. Responsibility returns to where it belongs. No more blaming the past, the environment, the conditions, not because they are irrelevant, but because they are no longer in command. And once that becomes habitual, everything changes. Life does not become easier. You become stronger, more steady, more focused, more grounded. The world may not notice. That is fine. This path was never about being seen. It is about alignment. You are not here to prove. You are here to build, quietly, relentlessly, on your terms. This is focus. This is maturity. In silence, excuses lose authority. There is no applause to chase, no audience to impress, only you and truth. Without spectators, you take control, no one judging pace, no one measuring effort, just the day, the work, and your word. The need to explain dissolves, external validation fades, your attention turns inward, and that is where transformation begins. Now it is no longer about enough for others, it is about your standard. Standards are immune to applause. They exist whether watched or ignored. They are the rules you live by when no one enforces them. When you stop waiting for accountability, you discover self-governance. Motivation is brief, a spark, standards endure, a steady fire. Motivation pulls from outside, from approval, from recognition. Standards rise from within, set by you, maintained by you. You know those days, no energy, no drive, yet the work continues because feeling is irrelevant. You decided it mattered, and that decision carries weight. This is where WTH occurs, when noise fades and action follows compass. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That becoming happens quietly, through consistent decisions, in unseen moments. Identity is not shaped by reaction, it is shaped by repetition, by standards honored when unseen. Strength does not require an audience. Freedom is found there. You stop seeking confirmation, you trust direction. Progress no longer depends on approval, it is rooted in principle. Principle shapes behavior, behavior shapes destiny. When values are clear, decisions simplify, motivation becomes optional, foundation holds. Discipline is born here, not from recognition but from commitment. Over time, discipline ceases to feel heavy, it becomes how you live. Seneca said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery begins when reaction no longer guides you. You choose response, you choose direction, you become author, not observer. Opinions lose relevance, explanation becomes unnecessary, action replaces justification. You act because it is right, not because it is applauded. Stability follows. Praise does not inflate you, criticism does not dismantle you. You remain centered. Trust forms. Trust enables consistency. Consistency creates progress. Progress builds identity. This is not passive, it is a daily choice, showing up regardless. The only opinion that matters is the one you live with. Progress reveals itself in composure, in resilience, in continuation. Eventually, external motivation fades. Internal drive remains. Standards become foundation, and because they are yours, they cannot be shaken. This is real power, not needing an audience, not needing permission, just alignment, commitment, and quiet execution. You stop chasing external validation to prove your worth. You build it through standards, through action, through loyalty to yourself. When you no longer need to be seen to be valuable, you become unstoppable. That is freedom. Slowly something shifts. The emotional roller coaster that once controlled your days begins to settle. Approval loses its grip. Rejection loses its threat. Praise no longer inflates you. Neglect no longer shrinks you. You stop proving. You start anchoring. The shift is quiet but profound. You move from dependence to self-possession. At first it is uncomfortable. You were trained to look outward, to measure yourself through reaction, to search for signs you are enough. That conditioning runs deep, but as alignment strengthens, the outside world grows quieter. Praise, criticism, attention, they pass through without ruling you. Stability now comes from within. Your worth no longer waits to be noticed. It already exists, rooted, unmoved. Peace does not come from perfection. It comes from acceptance. Life moves in waves. You no longer fight them. You focus only on what is yours to command, your response, your effort, your direction. When the external stops shaping the internal, you become centered, and that center does not shake. Discipline changes too. It no longer feels forced or heavy or dramatic. It becomes natural. You still feel temptation, still feel resistance, but it no longer controls you. You are not battling yourself anymore. You are aligned. This is where mastery begins. Not when you try to be disciplined, but when discipline becomes you. It stops being an effort. It becomes a way of living, woven into your days, quiet, consistent. You do not need motivation. The structure holds. What once felt like a fight becomes rhythm. You imagine discipline as pain, as pressure, as endless struggle, but once integrated, it simply becomes what you do, like breathing, automatic, unforced. Discipline is not perfection, it is consistency, showing up without applause, without approval, without recognition, doing the work because it matters, because it aligns. Over time, effort softens into habit, not easy, but natural, and with that comes freedom. You are no longer emotionally dependent. You stop measuring progress through reaction. You measure it through growth, through depth, through integrity. This is power, not ignoring the world, but refusing to let it define you. You still connect, still engage, but you do not depend. Validation comes from within, and it does not expire. As this continues, you become calmer, less reactive, more present. Emotions arise, but they do not rule. Thoughts pass, but they do not steer. This is maturity, knowing who you are without permission. Internal stability changes everything. It is rarely announced. It shows in movement, in restraint, in silence. You stop reacting to every obstacle. You stop narrating your progress. Your words become deliberate, fewer, sharper. You no longer explain. You demonstrate your actions. There is no spectacle, only execution. Others may not notice immediately. You are building something real. Confidence deepens. You stop over-explaining. Stop waiting to be understood. Strength without noise. Recognition fades quickly. It never sustains. Internal stability does. It holds when things break, when direction blurs. You move without announcing, adjust without drama. Failure becomes information, not identity. You learn, you recalibrate, you continue. This steadiness compounds. Life begins to move differently. People notice eventually, not your struggle, not your doubt, your consistency, your forward motion, your refusal to be swayed. You become someone whose presence speaks, integrity visible even in silence. Your sense of self is no longer negotiable. That is internal stability. It lightens everything. No fighting for progress, no defending decisions. You trust alignment. There is an effortlessness here, not laziness, discipline without friction. It lives inside you, guiding you through highs and lows, without losing direction. Your worth no longer comes from outside, not applause, not recognition. It comes from alignment, from values lived, from standards kept. This is real power, not visibility. Grounding. You stop trying to impress. You already know who you are. You stop seeking validation. You found something stronger, self-respect, and that does not depend on reaction. It is how you move through life, and that is where strength is built. Unshaken by the distractions of the world. You do the work. You make the adjustments. You stay steady, even when no one is watching. This is where real growth happens, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet hours, alone with your thoughts, your decisions, your discipline. This is the kind of power that stays with you, that continues to grow. No matter what happens around you, no one can take it away. When nobody notices, comparison loses its grip. You stop measuring your progress against the success or failure of others. You stop feeling behind because someone else seems to be moving faster or achieving more. Other people's timelines no longer define your urgency or accomplishment. The only reference point that matters is your own alignment. When you align with your values, your goals, your purpose, everything else fades into background noise. Distractions of other people's achievements dissolve. What remains is quiet focus on the path you've chosen. It's liberating to stop racing against someone else's clock and start running your own race. This is real growth. You stop competing externally and start actualizing internally. You ask yourself, am I being true to who I am? Am I moving toward what aligns with my values? Or am I chasing someone else's life? That internal shift changes everything. You no longer measure your worth by what others see or by what they've achieved. Our worth comes from something deeper, something independent of validation. The only timeline that matters is yours, no longer concerned with where others are. You gain clarity about where you are going. The fog lifts, decisions become simpler, obstacles feel smaller, hesitation fades, because you no longer compare, you follow alignment, you know what to do, you know where to go. The path becomes clear, because it's yours. This doesn't happen overnight, but every aligned step makes the noise quieter. At first it's uncomfortable. We've been taught to look outward for approval, for direction, for validation, but shifting focus inward changes everything. You begin to trust yourself, your judgment, your intuition, your ability to handle whatever comes. That trust becomes the foundation for all your decisions. Your direction sharpens, clear, undiluted by others. You stop second-guessing, not because life is easy, but because you know you are on the right path. Decisions are no longer clouded by fear of failure or need to impress. Each choice aligns with your truth. Each step builds momentum. You stop rushing. You stop chasing someone else's success. Your success becomes personal, defined by your growth, your effort, your alignment. It becomes meaningful, fulfilling, not fleeting. Life begins to reflect your own standards. Your worth is no longer tied to others' opinions. You create your own path, your own mold. Comparison becomes irrelevant. Your freedom is in alignment. You act on it. You live it. You stop hazy. Stop waiting for approval. Your decisions are clear, your purpose stronger, yourself unshakable. Pressure changes. It doesn't feel like a threat. It becomes part of the process. Resistance becomes training. Each challenge, each setback, each difficult moment builds strength. Pressure is no longer an enemy. It's a teacher, a test, a forge. You carry it, you endure, you push through, you grow. The greater the obstacle, the greater the opportunity. You stop asking when it will get easier. You ask instead, how will I carry myself through this? You stop waiting for life to become comfortable. You take control of your response. You stop giving your power to things outside your control. The situation doesn't define you. Your response does. No shortcuts, no avoidance. You embrace discomfort, knowing strength waits on the other side. Pressure becomes fuel, not a burden. Every obstacle, every challenge becomes proof of what you're capable of. You build quiet confidence, not by avoiding pressure, but by facing it with composure, with determination. You still feel tired, you still feel the weight, but you see it differently. Pressure builds you, it sharpens focus, tests limits, reveals character. You stand tall, move forward, carry yourself through adversity. True strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes when everything feels heavy and you keep going anyway. When the pressure is on, when the world is pushing against you, that's when you get to decide who you are. Will you crumble under the weight, or will you use it to build your strength? The more you face, the stronger you become. As Epictetus taught, it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Pressure is not to be avoided. It is to be mastered. It is the forge that refines your character. The more pressure you face, the more you refine your ability to endure it, and in doing so, you become someone who can carry more, do more, and be more. This shift in perspective is transformative, because it is not the circumstances that change, it is your mind, your engagement, your choice to act with virtue rather than be swept by fear. You move from avoidance to mastery. You stop fearing the pressure and begin to see it as the force that sharpens you, the fire that prepares you for greater things. You no longer ask for life to be easy. You ask yourself, how can I grow stronger through this? When you reach that point, pressure no longer feels like a burden. It becomes the training ground for your personal power. Each challenge a stepping stone, every setback a lesson in resilience. You are no longer overwhelmed by life's difficulties because you've learned to navigate them with inner strength. You've learned to stand firm, to bend without breaking, and to move forward with purpose. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Pressure becomes your guide, your ally, your teacher. Focus eventually becomes natural. At first it takes discipline, a conscious effort to center your mind on what matters, but over time that effort becomes second nature. Like lifting weights for the mind, the first reps are hard, your attention slips, your focus wanders, but gradually it strengthens, and what was once a struggle becomes your default state. You stop fighting to keep your mind steady. It becomes automatic, aligned with reason, guided by virtue, and progress no longer feels like a battle. This transformation is built step by step. Through quiet, consistent actions, when no one is watching, these small moments accumulate. They build momentum. They shape who you are. It becomes natural to show up, regardless of how you feel, regardless of external conditions. You stop seeking permission to become the person you were meant to be. You act as if you are already that person. You embody discipline. You embody courage. You embody self-mastery. The silence that once felt heavy now becomes your shield, your protection, your space for clarity, a place where your work can thrive, free from distraction, free from the need for validation. You trust your process, your judgment, your direction. Your actions are aligned with your purpose, not the whims of others. Over time, you rely less on external approval and more on your inner compass. Your work becomes cleaner, your focus sharper, your progress steady. You stop doubting yourself. You stop seeking recognition. You move forward with quiet confidence, and that confidence is unshakable. You are no longer a prisoner of others' opinions or of fleeting praise or criticism. You are free. You are grounded. You are aligned. Every challenge becomes an opportunity, every pressure-filled moment a chance to prove your strength. You carry yourself with composure. You endure with resilience. You grow with intention. As Seneca reminded us, no man is free who is not master of himself. You stop waiting for permission, for approval, for a perfect moment. You realize the power was always in your hands. You are the architect of your own life. You are the master of your own mind, the builder of your own strength. Your growth, your progress, your success are not dependent on anyone else. They are based on your discipline, your consistency, and your alignment. When you stop seeking validation, you unlock freedom. Freedom to live authentically, to create without limits, to pursue your goals without hesitation. Once daunting becomes the fertile ground of your transformation, where clarity, mastery, and resilience grow. This is where your true journey begins, where the power of Stoicism becomes real, not in words, not in theory, but in action, in quiet persistence, in steady alignment with what matters. You stop reacting to the world and start shaping yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your life. This is the essence of true strength, true freedom, true growth. You are the one who defines your path, the one who builds your future self, and every day, through your discipline and focus, you become who you were always meant to be. This is the power of internal mastery, the power of living aligned, the power of Stoicism. And that, my friend, is the philosophy we embody here at Stoicism Notebook.